Yeah.
I'm late to the
Everyone, and welcome to industry. The afternoon moved on to more assessments with safari game drives, photographic game drives, and bushwalks. So all in all, we're nearing the end of the competition. Tomorrow we will find out who the winner is. But there is someone who has regained their voice. Yes, they lost it, and they're going to come up here and just share a little bit more information with us about the Photographic Safari. So please allow me to introduce the winner of Safari Guide of the Year 2022 and one of our esteemed judges, Cameron Pearce. Hi, Cameron, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks, and you. Good to be here with you today.
Good. So obviously you didn't have a voice yesterday, but I believe it's back.
Yeah, thanks so much for James and Alan filling in for me. I really appreciate that, and we always love to hear from them. So thank you so much for that. I think it's back tonight.
I think it's back, and I'm glad it's back. Just for everyone, especially those at home, can you just explain a little bit about what a photographic safari actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, wildlife photography is quite different to other forms of photography in that we're dealing with a whole lot of uncontrollable aspects. We're dealing with an outside environment, so light is constantly changing as you're moving through the morning into the middle of the day, evening, and even into the nighttime. And we're dealing with the elements of weather. Sometimes it's raining, it's sunny. We have 4 seasons in one day sometimes here in South Africa on safari. And then you've also got the uncontrollable elements of your subjects. You're not in a studio where you can direct your models. These animals are completely unpredictable, and that's part of the skill with wildlife photography, is being able to predict the animal's movements so that you can better prepare to get your shot further down the line.
Excellent. Yeah, you can't tell animals what to do, unfortunately. Can you imagine if we could?
Wish we could. We'd all get some much better shots. Our portfolios would be much bigger, I think.
Absolutely. So, being a safari guide, why is it important to have that skill in sort of photography or being able to lead a photographic safari? Why?
Well, since the rise of digital photography in the early 2000s, photography has just become so much more accessible. The equipment is becoming more affordable, and it's the technology is making it relatively simple. So people are just embracing wildlife photography, and it's a way for people to capture their memories. And we only get maybe a week or 2 weeks on safari, but through photography we're able to capture those memories to relive for many, many years, and it sort of functions like a naturalist's journal. It's like a visual journal that you can keep about your safari. And so I would say somewhere around 50% of guests that come on safari these days are going to bring a fairly decent camera with them. And as the guide, if you're able to have a better understanding of how to make that happen for them, you're just going to be that much more valuable to their experience.
Absolutely, yes. You should always log your memories before it's too late. So last question, Cameron, how can a guide sort of improve their skill in this category? How can they make themselves exceptional at leading a photographic safari?
Obviously, just chatting to those that have done it before you, specialist photographic guides have always got lots of information, and they're usually very willing to share. There's some great online tutorials these days. We live in the age of the internet,
Yes,
so there's a lot of companies that do some really great online tutorials. As with anything, practice, practice, practice. So if you've got your own camera and you're able to spend many hours in the field doing it, you're going to get better and better as time progresses. And then, just also understanding the animal behavior so much better. Watching animals and understanding how they move is going to allow you to better be able to predict their behavior and translate that across for your guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, are you a good photographer?
I wouldn't say I'm a great photographer, but that's not what this category is about. This photographic judging category, or this photographic guiding category, is not about who can take the best picture. It's about who can help their guests to create their best pictures. So I wouldn't say that you need to be a great photographer, but you do need to be good at teaching it for your guests.
So you have to have understanding.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much, Lauren.
Yes. Now, we've spoke to many of the judges, but really why we're here tonight, as you all know, is storytelling. We spoke a lot about storytelling over the past week, and it really has been beautiful memories that we've all made together. At the end of the day, storytelling connects us to one another. People need people. Humans relate to other humans. Whether we like it or not, we all relate to each other. And there are many different ways to do that, but in this setting, under the sort of stars in the African bush, we relate to one another through stories. Not only do we relate to one another, but we also relate and connect back to nature. Stories can enrich us so much that we connect back to nature. James actually spoke to us about that today, which was really powerful. We're not separate from nature. We are one. We are together. We are nature. And sometimes we may lose that in our own minds, but stories here on safari help us connect again. So without any further ado, it's our last finalist story for this evening, which I'm very excited about. So please allow me to introduce HJ Esterhuizen from Royal Malewane.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for giving me this opportunity tonight to tell you my story. If you'll give me a second, I'm just going to grab a chair and drag it closer because I've got about a 3-hour speech planned. Settle in. So, where to begin? I was quite lucky in life to grow up in a small little town called Hoedspruit. It's based between the Kruger National Park and the Blythe River Canyon. It's a beautiful area. And I grew up in the typical Afrikaans speaking family. My mother was always a very good cook. She's very good with her hands. She could do quite amazing things, very good art, that type of thing. And my father was a very handy person. He could fix anything that you brought to him. And of course, because of the genes that I got, that trickled down to me, except for the cooking. So I was lucky enough to be a very handy person, and there's not much that I struggle with. I can literally fix anything. I can build things. I'm quite a lucky person in that way. So in life it's helped me a lot. I've also got the ability to make a plan in very difficult situations where something breaks or so and you need to fix it. And I think it's probably my strongest point. So I was very lucky. So this is where my story begins. With all these skills that I got one Sunday morning in 2013, very early, get a phone call from my father at 5 o'clock. Now for most people, if you get a phone call from your parents at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you see the red flags going up. So you answer the phone. In my case, it's normal, because that's what Afrikaans people do. They wake up at 5 on a Sunday morning and they think everyone else is awake, so they phone you. The conversation started quite normally. I could hear in his voice that there's nothing wrong. And not very long into the conversation, he said to me, I need your help with something today. Didn't really ask much questions, but I could figure out that he wanted to cut a tree down that particular day. Got into my car about an hour later, ended up going to Hoedspruit to go and see them there. They lived just on the edge of town. And as I pulled into the driveway, I see there's a tractor parked in the front yard. Big steel cable leading up to a big tree, and a chainsaw. So I could quickly figure out which tree it was very quickly. Got out of the car, greeted them, spoke to him, asked him what needs to happen. He says, no, this big Brazilian rubber tree that's growing in our garden is becoming a bit of a problem. The roots, it's got a very complex root structure, so it's busy growing into the foundation of the house, cracking the walls, that type of thing. And it also has quite big limbs overhanging the house, which is a bit of a problem because the wood of this tree is particularly very soft. So if there's big storms, there's a chance of these big limbs breaking off and falling onto the house. So we took a step back and we started looking at how we're going to approach this. So the easiest would be to tie a cable to the top of this tree, attach it to the tractor, and then one guy would cut and the other guy would pull with the tractor. Easy. We've done this before. Sounds a bit hillbillish, but that's what we do. And so the plan was sort of simple. There was one slight problem. When we looked at the tree, there was no way of getting up there. The limbs are too soft, you can't climb the tree. It's going to break and you're going to fall out. Someone is going to get injured. So we had to come up with a plan to attach this cable to the top of this tree. Back and forth between me and my father, I remembered that I had an old English longbow that's somewhere in a cupboard in the house. So after a bit of searching, I eventually find this longbow in the garage cupboard. Digging between old pipes and everything, managed to get it out. It's very dusty, blew the dust off. Noticed that the string that's on it was badly damaged and unrepairable. Quickly made a plan, found a paracord, made a makeshift string and strung the bow again. Then after another 10 or so minutes, we searched a bit more. We eventually find one of the old arrows that was lying around. This particular arrow had quite a bit of a sharp end to it. So I thought, just for safety purposes, I'm going to screw the sharp end off, and we'll use a blunt arrow for this plan that we came up with. And the plan was quite simple. We're going to take the arrow, we're going to take a piece of fishing gut, tie it to the end of this arrow, put it in the bow, shoot the arrow over the limb, and then we'll use the fishing gut to pull a rope over the branch, and then we'll use the rope to pull the cable over the branch, and we'll make a makeshift plan to get the cable attached to the tractor. Again, very simple, doable. So we take the bow, I walk up to my father, I give him the bow, start stringing up this arrow, and very, very quickly made a simple knot on it, easy job. Hand the arrow to my father, and the following happens. It's quite interesting. We in this beautiful area where you guys have seen the Bushman painting, and if you look at a Bushman, how they draw a bow, they do it quite funny at an angle. It's a very short bow, so they don't have a long pull on it. The shorter the bow, generally the more kinetic energy you have at a concentrated area. But this is a big English longbow, so the bow is about 1.5 meters long. So you have to pull it much further to get the result that we need. My father takes this thing like a bushman, and he goes up like this, and he releases the arrow, and the arrow goes maybe 8 feet, and it just drops down to the ground. And there I am, frustrated as hell. I can't believe what he just did it, because I want to get this job done. It's Sunday, get it over. So I grabbed the arrow and the bow out of his hands. In the meanwhile, the neighbors also arrived, because they started peeking over the fence, seeing this whole hillbilly situation with the tractor and the chainsaw and the bow and everything. So him and his wife and the kids are there in the garden. Wife speaks to my mother, and he eventually grabs one of the garden chairs, and there's always a garden chair in these stories. Sits on the garden chair and watches this thing unfolds. So I grabbed the bow out of frustration. On the way back to go and get into position to take the shot again, I give my father a bit of a lip, I like a bit of a chirp, just to say, you've done it wrong, let me show you how. So I grab the bow, all frustrated, and I pull this bow back with one massive movement. As I pull it back, I hear this old bow starts cracking. You can hear through the whole thing. Now, understand, it's also not the original string of the bow, so there's a chance of this slipping off. So the moment I had the bow fully drawn, I realized there's not going to be a second shot, because this bow is probably going to break. So I had to make this one count. And after putting up this, I'm in the position, draw that bow fully back, aim, and I release the arrow. And it was the perfect shot. You couldn't give a better shot. Textbook. Trajectory was perfect. This arrow flies straight. And as it's about to clear that limb that we want to get, I see the arrow start slowing down. But everything happens in slow-mo, because you still have the bow in the hand, you focus on the arrow, the limb is right here, arrow goes slow, slow, slow. And for a split second there, that arrow lost complete movement in air. It was standing still like this. And before I could realize what happened, that arrow comes flying back, straight at me. There was no time to do anything. Within seconds, that arrow hits me in the jaw. The back of the arrow. I'm standing there. I can't talk. I'm like, So I go back. I just see my father's eyes getting bigger and bigger. His face goes white. I don't get a reaction out of him to help me. So I turn at my mother. As I look into the house, I just see her disappearing as she's running away. So I continue looking for help. The neighbor's wife is down the runway, down the driveway, on the way to the gate. Kids are screaming and shouting in the background. They don't know what's going on. I sound like a dragon in the back because I can't talk. There's an arrow in my mouth. And the last person that I turn to for help is the neighbor. And here he is on his chair, sitting there. And the last I saw of him was just him doing this. And he's hanging. His arms are like in the chair, and he goes head first into the ground. He fades completely. So now there's no one to help really. So I turned back to my father. He was the only one that didn't run. And at this stage, he got himself together. You could see he wasn't as pale anymore. Eyes were smaller. And he just goes straight for me like you would grab someone if they attack you. He grabs me in front of the head. He pushes me back. I think that's where I lost the last bit of hair I had. And he pulls this arrow out like you would a dart out of a dartboard. I just hear this movement. But remember, this is the back of the arrow that's inside my mouth. The feathered part. It's a blunt object, so it caused quite a bit of damage. So the blood is gushing out and saliva is gushing out. And I'm running to like the garden tap, and all I hear my father screaming from the back, "Don't go there, it's dirty." So then I do a bit of a loop. I run into the house. My mother sees me again. She disappears into another bedroom. So now I'm into the bathroom, get to the basin. I'm under the tap there, splashing water. This obviously doesn't help to stop the bleeding that way. So eventually someone realizes what's going on, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and it's a handful of gauze. So I shove it into my mouth and into the hole. But remember in the beginning I said small little town. So now you must understand. Small little town, Sunday, and at that stage Hoedspruit had one doctor, and he was almost permanently on holiday. So not available. That was the first problem. The second problem was I'm extremely scared of needles. If you take me to the doctor, you need a dart gun to get me, because I'm not going to sit for a needle. So we avoided going to the doctor. It took about 3 weeks for this wound to heal up properly. For the first week, every time I drank something, I spilled most of it on the counter. It was a bit of a leak. And today when I shave my beard off, I can still see the mark on my it looks like a little VW badge that's sitting right over here. So people would ask, why am I telling this story? The reason why I'm telling this story is because of the life lesson that I learned out of this. And this life lesson helped me so much in guiding, in my career of field guiding, that I can't tell you how many times. When you work with people, you get frustrated a lot of times. And out of frustration, you do stupid things. And even if it's stepping on the string, and that's what caused the fishing line to bring the arrow back. That was the big issue. So the thing is, the moral of the story is, don't get frustrated, no matter how bad the situation is. And the other thing is, don't get cocky. If you get cocky, you get hurt. I proved it that day. But anyway, thanks for listening to my story. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Okay.
Another one.
Question from the audience.
Yes,
What happened to the tree?
we got a professional into it on a couple of days later. It didn't happen that day. Yeah. Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I don't really know what to say after that story, but thanks for the life lesson, HG.
Thank you.
all the stories this week have been incredibly diverse, very different, and we've got to sort of tap into all the finalists' little slice of reality, whatever they wanted to share with us. But I think by now you all know the importance of storytelling in guiding. So that's it for the live storytelling, but it's not completely over. We will be back tomorrow from 6:30 Central African time to go live at the beginning of the awards. And this is when we will find out who the winner of Safari Guide of the Year 2024 is. I really have no idea. I couldn't even begin to think who it's going to be, but I am excited. So thank you for joining us on this journey. It's been really special sitting around the fire with you all. And please do join us tomorrow for the big event. Until then, good night.